Today I'm going to be taking a look at the Orient Star Classic. I think it is a pretty cool watch, especially for the budget price. So let's get into the review. Now a little about the brand. It was founded by, I'm sorry if I butchered this, Shigeru Yoshida. And basically he was the head of a famous, or not a famous, Jesus Christ, successful wristwatch manufacturing company until about the end of World War II, where economic downturn led to the company closing down. But between the 1950s and 1951, he recuperated, created the new Orient company, and in 1951 he released the first Orient Star watch. And from there, they had a couple of kind of claim to fame innovations. They had in 1967 the Fineness watch, which was basically one of the thinnest, I believe, Japanese watches that had a day-date complication, something along those lines, for a span of about 5 to 10 years. So Orient was no slouch, and they really created nice watches, dressier watches. They had the Orient Star line, the Orient Royal line, and then the regular Orient line, if I didn't say that already. In 2004 specifically, they kind of had their rebirth with the introduction of the Orient Mako, which was their dive watch, which kind of was an alternative to the Seiko SKX, but was also its own thing, and also great value and pretty cool. In 2007, they became a subsidiary of Seiko, and in 2017, they became fully integrated into the Seiko Epson Monster type business. And, you know, just like how Seiko has its own in-house movement, so does Orient. Specifically, this Orient has what is considered a 40N52 movement. What that really means, I don't know. It's just kind of their own movement. Maybe it's based off a Seiko movement. I'm not 100% sure. But it does beat at 21,600 vibrations per hour. We have a mineral domed crystal, see-through case back, pretty much no water resistance, probably I think 50 meters. Yep, 5 bar. And other than that, let's take some dimensions. We have a 38.5 millimeter case with a 44 millimeter lug to lug distance with a thickness of 13 millimeters and a lug width of 20 millimeters. So right off the bat, you may be thinking, wow, 13 millimeters, that is a thick watch. And yes, the dimension does seem thick, but a lot of it is, one, in the dome crystal, and two, in the sapphire case back. So once it's on the wrist, that disappears, and you get really a pretty thin watch in general. It wears very similar to kind of the Seiko Cocktail, if you've ever worn that watch. So let's start off with the dial here. One of the things I think stands out the most about this watch, is, at least to me, is one, the addition of the power reserve, and two, the branding at 6 o'clock. I find that, one, the branding at 6 o'clock nicely offsets the power reserve, and also I think the power reserve is just a cool compensation to have. You see it goes from 0 to 40 because we have a 40-hour power reserve, and as you wind it, either by wearing it or winding the crown, you see the little needle move up, meaning you got more power. For me, it's been very useful to just have that power reserve. You just leave it on the desk. It's not running for a couple days. You come back, oh, I have 30 hours of power left, they're fine. Or, oh, I have 5 hours left. Am I going to wear it again? Should I wind it? Should I, you know, it's a useful complication to have, I think. Other parts of the dial we see is we have this subtle sunburst effect, which we'll zoom on in later. And we got a nice framed date wheel there. The applied Orient Star logo. We got applied hour markers and just dashed, painted on, or printed indices. I cannot tell whether or not the dial is actually domed, or it's just because of the domed crystal, I'm going to say the dial is domed because that's the impression that I get. I'm probably wrong, but it is at least what you see when you're looking at it on the wrist. You see it kind of gives that little hump-like look there. It may be from the crystal, but either way, it looks like it is projected onto the face, so that's what I'm going to go with. You see that the hands are brushed on one side, polished on the other, and that just adds a nice visual touch to the watch. It plays with the light better. It just looks visually interesting. Sometimes one half of the hands disappear while the other are still there. It's just something that's pretty cool. And we have pretty much just a simple stick counterbalance. So let's go into a macro of this dial so we can kind of just look at that sunburst texture. So here we are all zoomed in. We even see a nice attention to detail in this power reserve indicator because it has a nice little linear texturing on it. Just look at the markers. You can kind of tell from at this angle that we have a somewhat of a triangle type base to the marker and then two sides joined in the middle. So it's kind of like a pyramidal shape. And it looks like it's almost resting on some kind of little platform underneath. But either way, I feel like the shape of the markers adds a lot of visual interest to the watch. It gives a nice dimensionality and it plays with the light really well. You see the Orient star logo. Not only is the printing done very, very well, but the applied logo looks very nice. If you look at the hands are done very sharply. I see pretty much no imperfections in the hand. It can be a sharper point there, but you know, that's just a small pick at it. Maybe a little bit of blemishing on the end of the hands there, but overall, very sharp, very well done on the finishing. And as we see, I mean, from the wrist, it looks like a sunburst texture, but it's even kind of hard to see the sunburst here. If I would, oh, there we go. You see the little striations there to give it that sunburst effect. There we go, and now you can really see it. So yeah, it just the dial catches the light because it's this silvery type of white, and you see it has all those specks of kind of just different coloration in it, which just adds some visual interest to the watch. As you can see here, there is a dot on the dial. It's it's an imperfection. It's a QC control issue type thing. But these watches you can normally find for between the $200 and $300 range, and you can't really expect the world. But really overall, I think it's a really nicely done dial. For the price point, I think it's pretty amazing. Of course, there's little imperfections here and there, but I think it's just really cool for the price. Moving on to the case of the watch, as you can see, we have this nice thin bezel which leads into kind of a separation of the bezel, leads into the mid case, which is very slim, very thin, and if you can tell, the mid case is actually a bit wider than this bezel is, so it adds a nice step down kind of visual accent to the watch, and it just adds dimensionality. It adds a little bit of character from the wrist, and because that juts out a little farther than the bezel and everything's polished, it just plays with the light so nicely. So I think that's really cool. As I said, it's just an all polished watch, no frills, no special finishing, which is a little bit of a bummer, but it is a dressier leaning watch. We have the nice Orient star logo on the crown, nice textured crown. I've never had a problem gripping or winding this. Very I guess grippy. We have drilled lugs holes with which I love because this white dial watch, fairly simple, not too flashy. I feel like it's just a strap monster. I've put so many straps on this watch and I've been pleased almost every time. Right now I have it on this nice Barton canvas strap, which I'm loving it on. If we turn the watch over, we get a nice see-through case back. It has some decoration, but the decoration isn't too deep. I would say the rotor is the nicest part of it. You get this nice striping on it, and then the nice the nice gold lettering for the Orient star and the logo there. but you can see there's some perlage attempt in the rest of the mechanisms of the watch, but it's just not very fine, so it doesn't really come up awesomely well. But you can get it at certain angles and certain lights and see it, and it does add a little visual touch. It does add a little nice accent to the watch. And overall, I appreciate them trying to do a little decoration to it. They got, colored jewels, and I think that's really cool. It's a $200 to $300 watch, and many watches at this price point either don't even have a sapphire case back or it is not decorated at all. So I appreciate the effort. The case of the watch, I feel, sits very well because we have a very relatively short lug-to-lug distance. I think it was 44 and change. So it fits very well on the wrist, very compactly. Also, as it has that curvature, it does fit very well. The lugs themselves, they are not too thick, they're not too thin. They start a little thicker at the base, and even they get smaller towards the end, but not too small. I think Orient just did a great job on the case here. Speaking of the wearability of this watch, let's try it on. Earlier I was wearing my Eon Bradley. Super cool watch. So here is the watch on my 6.5-inch wrist. As you can see, it wears very well. The fact that it's about a 38mm case, very modest. The fact that it has a very short lug-to-lug distance makes it sit well on top of the wrist and leave space so it's not overhanging or even close to overhanging. I think they just got the proportions on this watch very nice. I mean, of course, if they would have made it in a 36mm, I would have died, because that would have probably been the perfect watch at this. Not perfect, of course, but for me, one of the most amazing watches probably at that price, under $1,000 really, for a 36mm dress watch with this proportions, this styling. But even at this size, I think it works well on small wrists, it works well on large wrists, it looks good. You get a lot of visual play from the bezel and the case, you get a lot of play from the markers, the dial, the finishing in the hands. I think it's just a very comfortable watch to wear, a very ergonomic watch, and I just really like it, So let's do pros and cons. Let's start off with the first thing, which I would say is the sizing. I think it is good that it's a sub 40mm watch. If they would have made it 40mm or larger, I think it would have been too big. They could have gone a little smaller, but I think it's pretty great as it is now. I also do like the domed crystal. Again, I don't know whether or not it's the dial that's domed or it's just the crystal makes the dial look domed, but either way, the dome crystal is contributing to the watch and making it not only fit in with the vintage look, but just make the watch look good. I also love the power reserve indicator. It is just a complication you don't see nonetheless at this price point. And it's just something that I think is not only useful because it tells you how much longer your watch will run, but it's just something that's cool, honestly. I appreciate applied markers at this price point, even though that sometimes they seem kind of flat. It still does add some character to the watch versus them just being printed or numerals. And I like that the logo is here at 6 o'clock. They didn't put it at the 3. They didn't try to make this power reserve indicator smaller and put it under. They've really balanced out the watch here. I could have done without the date window, but I understand why it has a date window. But yeah, I think it's a very well balanced dial, and it just looks really good to me. Cons, as there are with every watch. For me, one, the quality control, of course. As we said earlier, I have that small little dot there, which sucks, but it's not the end of the world. Other than that, the fact that it's all polished, it can get scratched easily. It doesn't look too bad. I've had this for maybe 3 years and it looks still pretty good to me. I just recently got this dent here just like a month ago, which sucks, but it happens when you bang your watch into something. Something I do think could have been improved on this watch is the sizing of the hands. If this hour hand would have went out just a little farther to touch these markers, I think it would have been kind of a more thought out watch design, just because you're actually timing it to those markers, so might as well have them touch the markers to have it have no ambiguity. But that's a small pet peeve. Other than that, you can argue I want a dome sapphire crystal or I just want a flat sapphire crystal. If you would have got a dome sapphire crystal, you'd be paying a lot more. If you got a regular sapphire crystal, again, I think you'd be paying more. And also the dome sapphire, no, the domed mineral crystal here, I think just helps the design. So I wouldn't take it as a con, but I can see how it could be a con. But final thoughts, as you've probably found out, I love this watch. I love how it wears. I love how many straps it fits. I love the look of it. I think at the price point, it's a great watch. It comes in black. It comes in white. I think it's a good alternative to the Sarb. Of course, it has a different styling. It's more dressy than the Sarb. It is less robust. But if you lean towards a dressier watch, if you just want a dress watch, if you are just looking for a nice clean watch, honestly, I dress this down all the time. I very rarely wear this in dress occasions. Put it on a nice purlon, put it on a rubber strap, put it on this Barton canvas strap. You can wear it with jeans, you know. So overall, I think this is a great watch for almost any occasion, for any person, and if I had it my way, this watch would be probably in everybody's collection. But thank you for watching, and hopefully you enjoyed looking at this watch as much as I do.